If you're interested in attending Catholic worship, come consider the 10 o'clock a.m. Mass at St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. We're located just 4 blocks up from Soldiers Field Road at 43 Holton Street. You can check out our website at stanthonyalston.org. That's saintanthonyalston.org. And come to the 10 o'clock Mass and experience our chanted Liturgy of the Eucharist every Sunday. Let us offer our consecration to the Lord. Lord, we offer up to you this day, and we ask that your name be glorified as we continue to work towards the end of the week, as we continue to recognize that only in you is peace, only in you is truth. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. You know, I forgot to mention, this week has some interesting celebrations. I forgot to mention yesterday. Yesterday was the memorial of Saint Nicholas. Yes, indeed. So, who we ultimately recognize is a kind of a prototype or archetype, maybe, of Santa Claus, of the image of Santa Claus. But anyway, St. Nicholas. That was yesterday. Today, of course, especially speaking as a United States Navy veteran, is December 7th, which is obviously the recognition of the bombing of Pearl Harbor in 1941. As a Navy sailor, not only have I been there, obviously, a couple times, and obviously I've been on the USS Arizona Memorial, which, by the way, if I'm not wrong, is still a commissioned ship. I think it is. It was never decommissioned, and that is a Navy job. If you're a Navy sailor, you can have, we'd call it a rate, or billet rather, you can have that job of being those who lead tourists to the USS Arizona. The reason why the Arizona is still there is the ship was so big, which all the battleships were. It was so big, it's never been able to be raised because it's so heavy. And finally, people at the time said, why don't we just leave it here and it'll be an official cemetery, which in fact it is. And so if you ever go to the USS Arizona, you always have to go with the understanding you're in a place that demands quite a bit of reverence. But if you're ever coming up, if you happen to be in the Navy, I don't know if cruise ships go up. Probably not. Go up the same port? Probably not. Because you're going to a Navy base. But you come up in the harbor and you pass what is known as Battleship Row. You see, when the bombing happened, there were all kinds of battleships in port, and they were sunk. Many of them were sunk, and so they have these basically piers, in a sense. It's not going out into the harbor, but just this place where you could moor the ship that marks which battleships were there. So it's like a memorial all the way in. And you go in with the understanding that you will be respectful and you will salute because you are in the presence of what happened on December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. And there's all kinds of stories about, whether FDR knew or he didn't know, and the whole thing happens now with 9/11, whether or not anybody knew and whether they didn't know, and the whole bit. Same thing happened with the bombing of Pearl Harbor. One of the interesting things is there were a couple interesting things that happened. Number one, a lot of the shells that landed in downtown Honolulu actually came from our own. It was like friendly fire because they were shooting to attack the planes, but they'd miss, and the shells came down in downtown Honolulu. The other thing is that there's a kind of a miracle, believe it or not, in the midst of this whole thing, there's a kind of a miracle that happened. And you might say, well, there could have been a bigger miracle. They could have not shown up in the first place, or they could have got lost and been like that lost, what do you call it? The group of planes that get lost in the Bermuda Triangle, so to speak. The Japanese could have done that. No one would have been bombed. Well, yeah, that's true. But It's still a powerful thing, and if you've ever been there, it's very hard to get there because it's on military property. And we were in the military. I just got out of the Navy, but I was with friends who were in the Navy at the time. I think one was a captain, and they took us to this place. The Japanese came in over the island, and then they hit Hickam Field, which was the Air Force base, while the Army Air Corps, the Air Force didn't exist then, and then continued on to Pearl Harbor. Well, what they didn't realize, they went to this very, very beautiful, I don't know what you call it, this area, I don't know what you call it, and a beautiful view into the entire Pacific Ocean. It's like a valley between two mountains. Well, under that valley was all the ammunition for the entire Pacific Fleet. It was an ammunition depot. If the Japanese knew that was there, they would have bombed it and we would have lost the war. Fascinating, but they didn't know.
Don't forget to tell others where they can find our program. You can hear us on WEZE 590 AM and WEZEradio.com at midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, Eastern Time. We then podcast the program on your favorite podcast platform and at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also hear us on our parish website, ST for StAnthonyAlston.org. That's StAnthonyAlston.org. And let others know where they can find us and spread the word and subscribe to our podcast.
Hey, just a reminder, if you'd like to come to our parish, you're not going to another Catholic parish, and you'd like to see what it's like coming to St. Anthony Parish, you have a standing invitation to our 10 o'clock a.m. Mass on Sundays. And therefore, when you come to Mass, and maybe you don't want to contribute yet, you kind of feel a little uncomfortable about just sitting there, write the word radio on a piece of paper, drop it in the collection. No one's going to be any the wiser, and you're come to experience what we do. We have a chanted Mass, by the way. The latter half of the Mass, we chant back and forth. I'll chant something, and then the people will chant back, and we do that back and forth. So anyway, that's one of the things you can experience. So again, write the word radio on a piece of paper, drop it in the collection, so you don't have to contribute anything yet. You may not be ready. You may not want to. You may just want to try it out, and then you can sit there and experience what Mass is like. But don't forget to say hello at the end of Mass. I'm usually at the back of the church. So we're talking about the reading today, and it falls on an interesting time because, of course, we were talking about Pearl Harbor, and we understand that the Lord is saying how he wants to build a peaceful nation. And what is a peaceful nation? It's a righteous nation where people live the way of the Lord. And they do that by trusting in the Lord. Now, you obviously might turn around and say, one of these days I'm going to get rid of that expression, you might turn around. I wish I did. You obviously might say, well, isn't that, what's it called? Isn't that now I forgot the theocracy. Gosh, I forgot the word. I was going to say theophany. No, it isn't that. A theocracy, no. Well, what's the difference? Simple. A theocracy is a place, such as Iran, where the people say, you will do what we say, and we speak for God. That's a dictatorship. That is not what the Lord is calling us to. The Lord is calling us to, each one of us, offering our heart to the Lord in doing his will. Dorothy Day would describe it as a Christian anarchy. And what she believed in is that if people were actually living the gospel, there'd be no need for government. That's basically what Isaiah is talking about. So a theocracy is the exact opposite. It is, we represent God and you're going to do what we say. No, that's not what's being referred to here. What we're called to do is to come to understand the truth, the wisdom of God, and seek to embrace it and seek to live his gospel. That's important, which means that we may live in a way that challenges the powers that be, whether they be political or even religious, which is why another reason why a theocracy would not work. Dorothy Day was a challenge to the church authorities, to say nothing about the public authorities, but she was a challenge to the church authorities because she lived a very powerful way of life. She called it radical evangelical Catholicism. And she lived it in a way that really demonstrated how to live the gospel in a powerful way. But she said it's a calling. Not everyone has this calling. And if you want to hear an example of it, listen to my my interview with Scott Schaefer Duffy over at Catholic Audio Media Interview.podbean.com. You can find that from Catholic Audio Media, and look for the interview with Scott Schaefer Duffy. I think I had 2 weeks of interviews with him, 2 weeks of programs. And what a great interview. And he follows the Catholic Worker, which Dorothy Day and Peter Morin founded the Catholic Worker movement. He follows the Catholic Worker, he and his wife, the Catholic Worker teachings. And he takes it very seriously. That would be an example, in a sense, of what we're seeing in Isaiah. So it's not a theocracy. This is the way you have to live, and if you don't, we will condemn you to hell. No. It is, I choose to live as the Lord is calling me. I choose to live in this deep relationship with the Lord. And if everyone were to do that, you would have a peaceful society. And the reason why you don't have a peaceful society is that people don't do that. There you go. And so it's understanding that aspect of living the faith. We're going to be back tomorrow. In the meantime, have yourself a blessed day, and we will see you then.
I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. Remember, when you're looking for a place to attend Mass, and if you don't already attend Mass at your local parish, come to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. We're located at 43 Holton Street in Allston, just a few blocks up from Soldiers Field Road. And you can check us out, come to our 10 o'clock a.m. Mass, and come to experience our Catholic worship at St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts.